Hello and welcome to the 32nd episode of building a 2D game in Flutter. And as you know, in the episodes up to here, we are mostly concerned right now with adding multiplayer support. We were able to render an arena that was basically created on the server and sent to the client on the client. So there we made some progress, but a lot of things are still missing. We had to disable a lot of things, obviously, as well, to even make this work. You can see down here, we get warnings because certain things in the game and in the player controllers are no longer used. But we'll get to that in a moment. So one thing about Arena, it's missing something that tells us where the player starting points are. And before I thought that it doesn't belong in the arena, but actually it does, because we want to know where each player starts. And however, we also will have to include not just the tile position there, but we have to include what player actually is kind of placed there. So basically then in our game model, which is on here, we will have a list of player models, right? But we can initialize those. So basically, what do we need for that? We need an ID, we need a position, and those will all be 0, and applied thrust will be false. So basically, we need to be able to give this part inside this in the arena. So what we could do is we could call it players initial players or something, initial player. And that one has a final int ID and final tab position. Okay, we're going to create a structure for this. And now we have a bunch of those. And here we need to be able to pack this, right? Because we want to send this over the wire. And we also need to unpack this. Obviously, if we pack this, we're going to get a packed initial player. However, we could argue that this is already packed. Let me think about this. I know, but we need to pack the top position. So let's create a packed initial player. And actually what we'll do, again, we don't actually create this in our dot code. We will actually create this inside of our proto. So let's open that. Inside the arena, in the packed arena, we'll also have a packed and it has uint2 ID, and again the IDs we didn't make strings because we want to be able to save space. And then the type position, so that would be the packed type position. Actually, let's call this type position so we know it is one. And then basically here we'll have repeated packed players. No, packed initial player, right? Difference there. And we make this 3 and we increase the other ones. Okay. So now we have this. Now let's go back here and rename this to type position. Yeah, it's taking a long time for some reason. Let's go over here. What we actually need to do now, we need to regenerate. We need to regenerate our classes, our proto classes. So now we'll probably get another warning here with the 80 lines again, but we'll deal with that later. If you watched last episode, we basically added some analysis options to make our code a little bit cleaner and to avoid some runtime errors that actually can be avoided. But then this caused still the generated code in some cases to be analyzed, which is not good, and that's why we get some warnings here, but we won't worry about this now. So when we packed, we actually get a packed initial player. Okay, so it looks like maybe our generation code didn't work. Or initial. Nope. Let's see. That should exist now. There's an error here. Okay. So I wonder why it didn't give us an error here when we ran this. That's weird. So now we should be able to import this. Okay. Let's put a show here first of all. I'm not sure which one we want to actually import here, but let's take this one. Okay. Well, why is this? Why does this keep happening? Let's put it here by hand then. Packed. That is really odd. Why is it not? Oh, it's actually just complaining probably because we are not returning this. We're not returning anything. Weird. Let's initialize it. Is it happy now? This is really odd. Why is this not working? I need to understand what's going on here. Huh. Something is really confused here. Something is confused and I'm not entirely sure why. Okay, let's clean up some errors here. Let's remove this for now. Let's remove all this and let's start from there. So we have no error, right? And so let's see if there where the packed arena is defined, our packed player is also defined. Packed initial. I can't find a declaration to go to. This is really odd. Something with our generation code is not working. Here I can go. Here I can't go. Let's see what we're doing different here. Packed initial player. There are no errors. So now we're obviously getting this. So we did regenerate. Oh my god, now we get these all over the place again. Okay, we're gonna have to do something about that later, but for now, okay, now it did generate it. Okay, good. So somehow before it didn't generate us the packed initial player. So Okay. So that's exactly what I wanted. Okay, we finally have it. Sometimes you have to find the tooling a little bit to get to the where I actually want it to be. So packed initial player, and then we're going to say the ID is ID, and then the type position is basically type position, this type position dot pack, and then return that. All right. Now we will have an unpacked one. Basically, it's a factory method. And it will give a packed initial player. And so basically we'll create an initial player. And that initial player will have an ID, which is basically data.id, and it will have a type position, which is a data type position unpack, and there's no unpack. We have to do tile dot unpack. Okay, so now we have that. Now when we create our arena, we need to already give it the positions. Now, as you can see, so we need to have the other one. So basically, where are we? From tilemap, right? So here, basically, we're only considering walls and tiles at this point, but we should also consider players. So what we do then is we'll say that our players, right? So and we don't know the ID yet. So we get the arena with initial players, and they only will have the type position, actually. They can't have the ID yet. So let's change this. When we reconstruct it, when we unpack it, we want that to be able to pass this, right? So when we know the ID, when we unpack this on the client, we want to be able to do that, but we will make it non-final, and we actually will make it a private, and we put a getter and setter around it. Well, actually, it's kind of pointless, right? Anyhow, what I wanted to do is basically be able to set this. So for now, we add an initial player, and we add the tile position from call, row. Right? So now it's okay. So why don't you format it differently? Because it can't, because we're giving it not enough parentheses. Okay, so now we're going to add this initial player, and the thing is, at this point, it doesn't have an ID yet, right? So we also know that for each arena, for each level, we'll have a certain number of players that the level has. So if we go to our simple level, we go to our simple level here, which is here, simple level, where did it come from? Okay, so this one actually needs to tell us how many players are in there. But in a way, we'll figure this out. It would be nice to have that metadata, right? We won't worry about this for now, but it would be nice to basically the levels basically tell us how many players are in it. At this point, the arena will find out, and basically at this point, the arena can tell us if we're ready to play, because the arena knows how many initial player positions there are, and then the game needs as many clients participating as there are initial players. So obviously here we need to still, and this is where, right, we already talked about this, the required parameter doesn't protect us, because we had to disable it in a way because it's part of Flutter, and the server doesn't know anything about Flutter. So all these requireds that we put everywhere, usually they would basically cause a warning if we are missing this in a call, like for instance here, but now they don't. So okay. See this now? Before now it's telling us that we can't assign an iterable to something that wants a list. And before we did our analysis, before we changed our analysis option, we would get that error at runtime, which is obviously not ideal at all. So now we're getting that error right here while we're still working on it. So that's good. We got the initial player, and basically what will have to happen is when we create the arena from the tile map, we have the initial players, and then so we get the arena for the level, okay? And when we have the arena, we'll add we'll have to actually like an add client kind of thing. Because we want to know how many of our initial players here already have an ID assigned to them, right? So basically, what we're going to do, we're going to have an int here, players registered, and that starts out with 0. Well, actually, that's kind of, we're adding extra state here, which we're not going to send. Is confusing. So what we're actually we're going to figure this out every time we want to register a client. So we're going to have a method here with an ID, and then we say that ID is also an int. So here, so if we get here, we can't fail. I want to kind of assert something. It's kind of dirty. Let's say this. Say that yeah. Let's do So basically we're saying that if all the players have an ID assigned to them, then the arena is full. And so then we can say here arena full if arena is full, or we can say assert not arena full cannot assign more, cannot register more clients with arena that with full arena, let's say full arena. Okay, so that does make sense. Hopefully, like basically right now, instead of adding like another field that is like a state, we're actually deriving that, and basically we'll have as a maximum, let's say 4 players here, maybe 8, right? And to iterate here is almost like this will not take much time at all. So what we can do now outside of the here, we can basically say when we register a client, we can then ask if the arena is full, and then we know the game is ready. So what we can say is arena dot. So we're creating a new level here every time a client asks for it, which is weird because we need to basically keep track of arenas. But for now, we'll do it like this. It's fine. Dot register client, and then we give it the client ID. Okay, so for now this only works. Okay, so let's cascade it. So for now this works because we'll only like play with 2 players, and then we'll try things out. For now we obviously to do right. So for now we have 1. Then we basically register the client, and now we basically have the player positions. So basically now the game add client. Each client has, and actually what we can do, we can say try start, and we can pass the arena, and then the game will know if the arena is full. And we'll still give some power here to the game to decide if it should start. But what we'll do here is we have this thing here, enough players, and we will remove that. So we don't need that at all anymore. What we basically say is if not arena dot is full, return false. What I don't understand is why arena full. Okay, so and you can see we wanted to have it called is full. Looks much nicer. If not arena is full, then return false. Otherwise, we'll start the game, right? And so we pass the arena in here. And the reason why the arena is not part of the game proper is because, well, that's a good question, actually. Why would it not be? Because most likely we'll build a game model, right? We'll build a game model from the playing clients, from the game state. And the game state has pretty much all we need at the moment. It doesn't have those evals and stuff. So we'll figure this out later. We may have to actually say, well, yeah, maybe we'll actually make the arena a field here. Let's actually just do that because I feel like that makes more sense. So game state. Well, hold on. No. Yeah. I know why we didn't do it that way. Because the game state is something that will send to the client repeatedly, and there's no point in having the arena there. I mean, even if you don't add it to the message here, I want to kind of have this clean. I want to say this is a state that doesn't have any information on it that we already gave to the client, and that doesn't change, right? We only want to, in the game state, only send the things that could change. Okay. So now we have playing clients. Just sent here in the arena. So now we could basically say place players. Now what we need to do as next is we need to go to our game model, and this will cause a bunch of errors. Right now we only have warnings, but this will cause our game to no longer compile for a while, because there will be a list of this. We're not going to worry about the actually, it won't be a list of this, it will be map. Because we need to know what is our player. So we won't worry about the stats yet. We just don't use them at this point. But obviously, the stats will have to be per player as well. We can think of adding them to the player model, or keeping another map here. We'll see about that. So here we got the players. Now we're going to have a bunch of errors. So okay, so the player controller, we basically need to have we'll need multiple player controllers. Most likely, well, actually, for the player controllers, we don't need to necessarily be aware of. We don't necessarily need to be aware of the ID there, right? Because we can have multiple player controllers, and each one is only responsible for a particular player. So what we could do, we can say and actually let's make that a field like that, because that kind of makes sense. I have a typo there. All right, so we got the client ID that we now pass in. Now when we do an update, what we get is we get a map of player model. And then we basically say our player obviously then, oh, I don't like that at all. Let's just do that to get rid of that. That makes more sense to put that in a, maybe I want to turn that rule off with the cascading. Because that looks just weird now. We'll leave it for now, but it's kind of weird. It's munching things together in a weird way, but it's fine. So we got a player controller, and we'll both basically create one per player, right? So we will have multiple player controllers. And then basically we have a method that will do this. Okay. Need to pass collider add. Let's see what kind of type that is. Let's do it this way. Okay, so now we got a way to init our player controller. And so basically what we'll do is well, the other thing is that we already know the type position of the player. Oh no, but that purpose is in the model. We don't need to give it to it yet. Yeah, the controller has no. Basically, as you can see, like the controller basically has no state. What's going on? Okay. The player controller has no state at all except for the client ID. Everything else is kind of no state. So what you can do is we can say that the player controllers is the actually the keys, and then we'll just say that with this one we're going to create a init player controller from. So this will be the ID. We'll just call it that, so it'll clear the client ID, and then colliders dot collide to collider add. Let's see. So we don't need this. This is game player, so keys. What's the problem here? All right. Let's see what else is wrong. I don't know why it's dynamic. Keep making that same typo. I don't know why it thinks it's dynamic. It's clearly returning. This one's an iterable. Well, I mean, what does it want? It wants. Okay, so we can maybe say we get player controllers. Is it then happy? Okay, so we're missing. Okay, so maybe now. So what's wrong here? Oh, it just needs to be an int. And actually, we don't need to define that. I think. Hold on. Okay, so why is it complete? Oh, because the keys, we made it a map of string. Actually, needs to be a map of int. And wherever else we use string, we have to correct that actually. So, but now we got. Probably can remove this. No. Okay. So we should be fine. We are saying. Okay, to list. So that's how we get our player controllers. And then basically what we'll do is player controllers dot for each x update. And oh, this one is also a map of string. It should be a map of int. All right. So now we're basically saying run the update, give it all the players, Okay, and the same will have to be done for the bullets, but actually let's remove the call to the bullets controller, yeah, right now. And so this one we won't worry about yet. As I mentioned, we'll have a bunch of disabled code for now, because we're just trying to get the players to work. We're just trying to basically, for now, we're just trying to basically show all the players that are in the arena in their initial position. We're just trying to show them where they start. So, okay, so game node players, update UI. Okay, camera. Okay, so first of all, we need to figure out. So there is no camera follow, right? Because this is on the server. So this is called from the UI only. So yeah, there's some weird thing going on. So this game only exists client side, which means actually update UI on the client side does basically nothing for now, except it should render. Oh, hold on. So this is on the client side. So we actually need to know who we are in this game. So when we create this game, what we need, well, we need to know somewhere who we are, right? So when we get our game, we need to know who we are. So let's just say int client ID. That's who we are. Because this rendering stuff will, well, actually maybe for now we don't need to know who we are, because we basically need to render. This is just important for the camera follow. So let's just get rid of the camera follow. And basically what we need to do is update sprites. Who's player? So player, we won't have just a list of player. We have a list of int, and it's players. Let's actually see what this does. So each player will have its own sprite. So this thing has kind of state. So we can't have just one. We need multiple. So let's see about that. So what we could also do, we could also create something like players. So let's just say we'll have another method here. And this is like similar idea, right? We want to player, and we say init. And there's nothing special here. So all the rendering, right? We don't even have to know at all who we are rendering. It's not important if we are rendering our player or the other players. It's only important when we try to follow the camera. So just for that reason, we still will keep them as a map. So we have the players, right? So, and then basically we say the players is basically the and what we'll do, we we'll add to this. So basically what we'll do, we'll say that the key is basically, so if we go through our, so we create a map, sorry, it makes it simpler. We're not trying to initialize this all at once. So we create our map, and then basically for the players in the game, for the keys on the players, we're creating a new player. So now we have a map of players. And now what we can do, we can say so what I'm actually trying to do, this is a map, right? But this is not the way it seems to be working. It looks like we need to say entries. So then what we want to do, we want to get the players of entry dot key, and then we get the entry dot value. So now we're basically iterating over the map of players in our model. We figure out what player sprite did we create for this, right? So this is basically we call it a player, but it's actually like a player sprite kind of thing that basically renders, and then we update all of them, and that should work. So let's see what else we got. Some errors here. Sorry, this is where we update. So the thing is, like, the update UI does never run on the server. This basically just updates the sprite state. And so basically the same thing we need to apply here. Except we need to render. And we basically render the entry. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So basically now we're iterating through all our, and so the walls kind of took care of that in a way. Because the walls, basically, they get some walls and they iterate over them when the render happens, right? They iterate over the rects. Now we're doing all this here. We may later on actually pull all this code into another thing that wraps the operations on the map of players. But I think for now it's fine. It's not too complicated yet. So let's see what else we got. Some errors here. Player model. So players, and we need now. Okay, so. So this code definitely shouldn't run anymore. what we actually need to have, I'm going to remove all this code most likely, because we do not want to create a model on the client anymore, ever. What we'll do, we'll keep the stats model thing around and the bullets thing around. And then we'll say create model from the arena. And so then the players become arena.players, but they're initial players, right? So we get our players. It's basically the arena.players. Well, it's a map of int and player model. And so what we can do is then iterate over this, and then we say that the player is basically a new player model. And then basically what do we need? We need the ID is the initial player ID. The applied thrust is false. Then the angle is 0.0 in the beginning. I mean, we might have some players that already have an angle, but that's for the future. Top position is basically the top position of the initial player. And then the velocity is basically, so let's put that here because it's offset dot 0. Like the players start with not moving yet. And then we can say that now we got the player, and so now we add that to the players. The player of the initial player dot client ID equals the player. And so now we got the players. The floor tiles are also coming directly from the arena. The walls as well. The stats we keep here for now. This comes from the arena. Let's move the two things that we are actually creating here to this. Okay, so now we got that. So now we can create our first game model from the arena. Which brings us back to main finally. So in main, oh, we already had something like this. Well, this is not something we should do. Where's something, okay, so yes, that works too. It's kind of the same thing. The reason why probably I didn't, well, this is fine though. This is not even part of the game model file. This is fine. I'm going to remove this method here. Kind of repeated ourselves, but that happens. So basically what we want to do is create model, and we pass the arena. Or is it? Where do we? Okay. Okay, so at this point we don't even really know who the client is, right? Which is fine. But probably we want to have that in our game model. So actually we'll do that right now because we're in the middle of this. We want to actually keep track of who we are. This is something that doesn't change. But we need to know, well, we need to know who we are, right? Or do we not? Or maybe not. Not for now anyway. So we'll leave it. So now we create a game. So right now we only got warnings. So we should actually be able to launch a server. And what we'll do for now in our level, we'll remove one player. So we'll only have we only need one player to get this started. So one thing I'm noticing is, why does it have to be 1 and 2, right? We changed that. That was just for our own for our own peace of mind, right, to say this is player 1, this is player 2. It doesn't really make a difference, to be honest. We could just have a player here and a player here. We don't need to know who's 1 and who's 2, right? They just get, whoever signs up first gets the first slot, whoever signs up next gets the second slot. So that means that in our tile map, we'll just change this. That should be all that's needed. And now we should be able to, first of all, launch the server. Oh, yes. And so then I wanted to go and only have 1 player for now, right? So let's remove this player on top here. I just want to get to the point where the arena is full immediately. So we just have to launch 1 client app, and we get a rendered game with a player. And we'll try that real quick, and I hope it works. In either case, in about 2-3 minutes, we'll have a short break of 5 minutes, and I'll come back at the top of the hour. So we got the server listening, and now we need to launch. No, but why can't I? Oh, I need to say I want to launch main. All right, so now it's a new, okay, we want to upgrade now. We'll do that later. Let's see if our game renders, if our player shows up. Our game was rendering before, right? We had the floor tiles, but we had errors. So let's see if the errors also went away, because now we actually do have a player. And if our player is actually rendering. Okay, so we got our game. We have no error, so we got the 2 of those 3 things. So what I'm going to do is, I think all we did is we disabled rendering in the player. Yep. So if I just enable this. Might have to reload. Let's try this. Nope. Okay. Let's try to restart it and see what happens. We should get our player rendered. This is where it's happening. And we are rendering the grid, so we know for sure that we're actually entering here. Okay, I don't see any player rendered. Okay, well, what we can do, we can launch this again in debug mode, and we'll just, when the game gets created, this is one we want. If our game gets, when our game gets created and we initialize all these things, well, one thing that I'm noticing is where's our player controller? Where did we do that? Where are we using our player controller? In the game controller, okay. So I want to actually see that this actually gets initialized correctly. So let's put a breakpoint here. And we'll also put a breakpoint in our game. Make sure we get initialized here correctly. So So breakpoint, we'll see if we'll just look 1 second, but either way, we'll take that break. Don't want to go too much overtime. Did we ever hit? We never hit our breakpoint. And I think I launched it in debug mode. Okay. But we are creating a Badufo game. Why didn't we hit this breakpoint? Let's try this again. I'm actually going to put a breakpoint in main as well. That would not be very nice if we can't launch in debug mode. What? We're not hitting our breakpoint. That is very weird. And it's probably a good place to take a break and hopefully figure this out. I'll be back roughly on top of the hour, probably like 2-3 minutes afterwards. So see you there. Thank you.